I'm Lu Yan from Beijing Review Magazine, and this is the Governance Podcast, a podcast that explores the past, present, and future of governance in China as it works toward meeting its development goals and finds its place in the global community. On January 1st, 1979, China and the United States officially established diplomatic relations based on the principle of seeking common ground and setting aside differences. 45 years on, this principle is still as crucial as ever for building and maintaining a positive relationship. President Xi Jinping has drawn important lessons from reviewing the past 45 years of China-US relations. He has emphasized that China and the US should aim to be partners rather than rivals, and that they should do this by helping each other succeed rather than causing damage to one another, seeking common ground while putting aside differences and making sure their actions are aligned with their words. Another key message put forward by Xi is that the Earth is big enough to accommodate the respective development and common prosperity of China and the United States. Though China and the US have different national contexts and social systems, they are both major countries with pivotal positions in the global framework. They complement each other in many fields, including trade, economic development, and science and technology. A stable China-US relationship is important for maintaining world peace and development. Joining me for this episode of the Governance Podcast are Wang Huiyao, President of the Center for China and Globalization, a think tank based in Beijing dedicated to promoting China's role in global affairs and dialogue with the world, and James B. Heimowitz, Honorary Chair and former CEO of the China Institute, a nonprofit organization based in New York City that aims to create greater understanding of China. During the episode, we'll discuss China's policies toward the U.S. and how to repair and develop bilateral ties based on President Xi's vision. Wang Huiyao, thank you for joining our podcast. President Xi has famously said that the Earth is big enough to accommodate the respective development and common prosperity of China and the United States. Is this possible? And is it possible given the zero-sum thinking often seen in U.S. political circles?
I think this is highly possible because we are living in the 21st century and we are really all global villagers. We're living in a global village. And also, on the other hand, the Earth, the ocean, and the universe is big enough. And so I think the development of both U.S. and China, prosperity for two largest economies in the world, we're really benefiting both countries, but also global countries at large, and particularly developing countries. And the reason I think this is possible is that we are really already in the information era, we are in the AI era, we are in the contemporary globalization, where, of course, we are in a green globalization. And then because there's so much challenges now, and for example, climate change, AI, and pandemic, and also the challenge of the future that we may have on the possible war broke out. We've seen that already in Ukraine and in the Middle East. So it's absolutely important, absolutely crucial that China and the US, being the two largest economy, had moral responsibility to work together for the sake of mankind. We're complementary. It's not a zero-sum game, and it's really beneficial and interesting for both sides to really work together and to lead the world together for the better prosperity and security.
So, James B. Heimowitz, what's your take? Is the world big enough for both China and the U.S.?
From my perspective, China and the United States have the most consequential relationship on this planet. And it's really important for the future and for the sake of the future of our planet that these two really important countries learn a better way to engage and to collaborate and to work together and to appreciate each other. I think that the rest of the world needs to learn how to engage with a China that is taking a leadership role. That doesn't mean that everyone's going to see things the same way either. But it does mean that we need to have an appreciation and understanding of the influence and the rise of influence that China has on this planet.
Some say China-US relations often follow a cycle, and while they're currently at a low point, there is potential to recover. What will it take to see a recovery in China-US relations, and how likely do you think that is to occur?
I think that China-US relations really follow some cycles. For example, starting from 1972, we see, after 20 years of 1949, we see the relationship start to warm up back again. And then we had 20 years of booming, and in the recent 20 years, we're seeing it's coming down already, and probably at a low point now. And we could really probably see a recovery in the next 5 to 10 years. And that's the belief, not only myself, but also Professor Joseph Nye, whom I had a dialogue with quite a few times. He thinks the same. He thinks there is a cycle, there is a period of difficult challenge time, but in the end, we have to really accept each other because, as Professor Joseph Nye said, U.S. cannot change China, China cannot change U.S. We might as well live together. And so we should really abandon the concept that you become one of us or I become one of you. There's not necessary that we have to be the same. The world is so colorful, the multi-diversity, multicultural, and multipolar world is really taking shape now. So I think that China and the U.S., we could have some strong cooperation, but we're not afraid of a healthy competition, but not rivalry. Let's have some healthy Olympic-style competition so we can really promote each other and improve each other with healthy competition, which is great for the mankind. And the most important is the cooperation, and we have to work together. So I think with what has happened in China, China has been doing well in the last 45 years since opened up. It has lifted 800 million people out of poverty. It has built China into the second largest economy. We have to accept that, give some credit for that. The U.S. has been, building a Bretton Woods system. This year is 80 years of a Bretton Woods system. And now we need to enhance, improve, and enlarge now since the world has changed so much since 80 years ago. So for both sides, I think we should really aim at working together to strengthen the multilateral system, the UN system, and really work together.
So James, what do you think? What will it take to see an improvement in ties?
What worries me most is that Americans can't really see the real China. Some of the troubling trends I see is what I call inward looking. A lot of Americans consume China, they understand China through the lens of other parties. Western reporters who come here and report on their experiences. I think it's important to have a sense of pride and a sense of knowing where you come from and your history and what that means. It's also important to be open-minded and curious and learn about other people's histories and other people's cultures and traditions. And I worry that the pride is taking away the air. There's not enough air space in the room that's getting sucked away, and it's so important to have room for both. I just sort of was listening to a scientist friend of mine, and he was talking about cancer and a cure for cancer. And he said, you can't expect science to have a cure for cancer without investing in basic science. And I think about the bilateral relationship, and we talk about 中美关系. And really the only way that we're going to see positive outcomes and a better state of affairs between the United States and China is if we reinvest and we begin and we build those basic building blocks. And what are the basic building blocks? Just like basic science comes before a cure for cancer, deeper understanding at a human level, at a people-to-people level, the culture, the language, the food that people eat, that's all required before we can build trust. So a sound relationship is built on trust. But before you can have trust, you have to have understanding. We're at the phase where we'd like to see a restart and get people to understand each other a little bit better. And my own personal mission is to try to bring the people just a little bit closer, because as they begin to experience each other's cultures and the way they live, the warmth grows. China Institute was founded in 1926 by Hu Shi, Guo Bingmeng, and two American professors at Columbia University, Paul Monroe and John Dewey. Hu Shi was very curious. He was the first Chinese to get a PhD at Columbia University in the 1920s. And at that time, we didn't have modern communications like we do now. But we had this curiosity. And if you ask me what's China Institute done, it's rooted in help people understand each other at a very human level. We bring treasured artworks from museums from across China, and we bring tens of thousands of people through to experience sort of culture through the classic way, through art. But we also do things that are just fun, through film experiences, through food experiences, through business programs, through all kinds of lectures and activities and social things. And I think the difference about what China Institute and what makes it special is we try to really connect at a genuine first-hand level. So if we can bring actors from Suzhou or tea producers from Fujian, people can experience China for themselves. If they can't get themselves here, at least they can have a genuine connection and have a little bit more insight. And for my own personal experience, I feel I've had a much richer life by being able to access more than one culture. I learned it by learning another language, by experience it, by living in another culture. And I think that my own personal happiness is deeply intertwined with that kind of connectivity. That's such an important component. I cherish it, and it's a gift. And I hope the younger generation will seek it out, have the curiosity to reach out and to be connected at a very human level. And then the policies that the government makes, they'll follow next.
So Wang Huiyao, what are the potential benefits of an improved relationship between China and the U.S. for both sides and for the international community? How would the world function differently in the presence of healthy China-U.S. ties?
What are the potential benefits? I mean, there's enormous benefit if China and U.S. work together. First of all, they are two largest economy. Their GDP are the two largest in the world. They can generate so much wealth, so much product, so much prosperity for the world, being the two largest, most important manufacturing and innovation center of the world. Second, U.S. being a leading force in the global system since the Bretton Woods system 80 years ago. But China is really coming up to enhance, improve, enlarge of it. For example, China is a leading force in the BRICS system, and where we see BRICS double last year, and then now has 30, 40 countries lined up to join BRICS, because China is really promoting the economic globalization, promoting economic prosperity and safeguard multilateralism on the free trade. And the U.S. used to be the champion of those things. So let's really work together. Let's continue work together on the Belt and Road Initiative, for example, Build Back Better World, B3W from the US, and EU Global Gateway from EU. Let's combine all those infrastructure program for the Global South. Let's also work together with World Bank and Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and Asian Development Bank and African Development Bank and many development banks together, European development banks, for the tackling global infrastructure deficits, or even build back Ukraine and Gaza after the war. So there's so many things we can work together for the benefit of the world. And the world is facing a lot of uncertainty, particularly the climate change. And China and the U.S. should really work together to have this green transition and generate a green power for the world to power the next phase of a green globalization that is coming up now, and we have to embrace that. And finally, I think China and U.S. should really maintain its people-to-people ties and student exchanges, tourism, all those industry exchanges, and cultural exchanges, academic exchanges. There's many things that we can set a good example for the rest of the world. Let's really strive for the high point, not for the low point. So in short, I think China and the US really has to work together. I mean, the world leaders work together, and we cannot really be the rivalry and have the conflict. We should really sit down, maintain our dialogues in defense, in climate, in AI, in fentanyl, in trade, in finance, in many, many more areas. So China-US should maintain a stability because already after 2 terms of U.S. administration, China is still resilient. Even though there's many tariff sanctions, trade wars, and all those containment, China is still there. I think we have to accept each other and make each other responsible stakeholder for our very challenging world.
More than 5 years after the U.S. began its trade war against China, it is high time for it to return the world's most important bilateral relationship to a positive state. Only through communication can both countries effectively resolve differences and problems. But talks alone are insufficient as a foundation for positive relations. The actions of both sides must match their words in order to build a relationship based on mutual trust. Both countries must continue to seek common ground while setting aside their differences as they did 45 years ago, and jointly serve the world's and their own common good. Throughout this series, we'll be exploring topics related to presidency and how governance is practiced in China. To stay up to date on the podcasts, visit the Beijing Review website, bjreview.com. Find us on YouTube or Spotify with the tag Beijing Review, or look for us where you get your podcasts. I'm Lu Yan in Beijing. Thanks for listening to the Governance Podcast. Bye for now.